Rodin turned to dance and the expression of movement in his sculpture and his drawings in the very late 1900s. And he made these from direct study of the model in the studio. The new findings that will challenge people's understanding of how Auguste Rodin made his late mouvement de danse, dance movements, are that Rodin did model some clay figures after dancers in the studio. And he then had them cast in plaster. What he did with them subsequently, after having cast them in plaster, is what is so innovative. The mold makers, in order to facilitate the mold making, to cast them in plaster, cut them up into pieces, into torso, leg, arm. But it's what he did with the molds, which are all represented in this case, that was so radical. He asked his mold makers to press clay into them and make multiples of each. And then from those multiples, so he must have had over 100, he combined them together to make little figures. These new findings show that Rodin was combining, repurposing, using limbs and body parts to express movement that was both naturalistic, but that was also kind of beyond real movement, beyond human movement, just into the essence of movement. In his late years, Rodin, a wealthy man, could afford to have models come to the studio daily, and he really loved sketching from the life model. And increasingly, he had models in the studio who were able to do all kinds of various poses, such as the one here of the man kind of lunging forward, which is in fact probably a man lying backwards. An aspect of Rodin's late work that was really radical, is really radical still, and that is he took his drawings and he would just turn them around and write various inscriptions on them so that they could be seen in more than one direction. Alda Moreno was the woman who inspired all of Rodin's dance movements. It is her physique and her personality really that went into his reconception of dance and of movement studies through these figures. She was an acrobat and artist model, and we know that she posed for Rodin in 1903, and we know that by 1905 she was no longer findable. What became more and more pronounced in his very late life was an interest in the extreme, working with acrobats, acrobatic models, dancers, people who could contort themselves into really extraordinary shapes that could almost go beyond what was humanly possible. He was very impressed by anything that really wasn't ballet. He was a great fan of the music hall, the high kicks and the provocative dances, and he was really, really moved when the Southeast Asian troops came to Paris and to Marseille in 1906. What makes this exhibition so special is that it's very rare to see combined in one exhibition sculpture, maquettes, drawings of acrobatic figures, and the molds that were used to make the sculpture, and to sort of enter almost an artist's studio in terms of it being the artist process that we're trying to show.